All right, so we've been off for a couple weeks. We haven't been here doing touch grass. Been out at ETH Denver with GMI and Avagachi, making our presence known, doing big things out there. Got to meet up with Bradley again from the Lens team. Almost got to meet Natter, but he was very busy and swarmed with people, so I didn't want to be that guy. And then let's see. I did get to meet Stani, so that was very cool. I was like, "Oh, hey, Zombie Shepherd," and he was like, "Hey, I collect all of your music." So that was
It's
really
cool to be
great.
recognized.
Definitely, and I didn't, that was cool too because like I didn't tell him I'm a musician or anything. He remembered like, "Hey, I collect all your music."
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's very cool. Um Didn't get a picture with him though. So that would have been the cherry on the cake there, but
Yeah,
anyway,
Pixar
very
didn't
cool.
happen.
But what I did get was this badass lens creator jumpsuit and like a sweatsuit. So it's the sweatpants and the
Nice.
sweatshirt that like has like this Lens University type logo thing going on. And it
I
was
saw
like,
some posts. I saw some pictures
yeah,
of it on Lens. It's a good looking sweatsuit.
hell yeah, it's very cool. I need to get me some promo pictures with it. It was tight. What I did do though the entire time was I was rocking my Lens Bogota bag that I got from Christina and Bradley at Art Basel. So nobody had the Lens purse that I had. It was very super exclusive.
Nice.
um So yeah, it was a good time. There was like I was getting at, it was just a lot of Lens going on. Musashi was posting a lot of Lens from Orb. He was posting a lot of things to Lens about ETH Denver. I was very swarmed and swamped, and Orb hasn't been working properly for me with and that would be on my Zimtimo.lens account anyway. I don't have Zombie Shepherd on my phone, but I did not get to a whole lot of Lens posting at ETH Denver. I did do a few posts like when I had time to sit down, and I am going to be doing some more posts. I have some other videos and stuff. I'm trying to get like, for instance, the performance videos from Contact at the Marijuana Mansion. So I'm going to be posting some of that stuff on Lens, and yeah, it was a really cool event. I feel like it was a historical ETH Denver. I feel like it was in a new venue and it was big and it was a lot of people. And even like watching Bankless content and like the Daily Gway and Anthony Sassano and interviews with the two of them, for instance, talking about this ETH Denver compared to last ETH Denver or previous years, even they were just like, they knew everybody in previous years, and this year they didn't know anybody. So that just goes to show you like the growth of ETH
Oh
Denver,
wow.
like the exponential growth that like um you know, yeah, like that OGs of ETH Denver just didn't know half the projects there. And Anthony Sassano actually walked by the Avagachi table twice, but he didn't stop to talk to us.
Oh, come on.
Yep. So I don't know. I guess we're not on his radar yet, but he should have an Avagachi. I mean, we are like the crypto punks of Polygon. But you know what's really funny? This is something I've noticed. Like I love Bankless and I love watching the Daily Gway, but I've noticed a lot of these old ETH heads, and it's funny to call anybody old, especially since they're all probably younger than me. But but these
And
like
even
early,
old as an amount of time in this space is like last year,
right,
the
that's
year
what I'm
before.
saying. So like these are like 2017 ETH people, and they don't get into NFTs the same way that newer people do because, I mean, I came in for NFTs and still didn't heavily speculate on them. It was more for me of vehicle of the creator economy, which is what this show is about. Um, so for me, the utility of NFTs is a lot more bullish and along the lines of like what Punk 6529 talks about when he says you're not bullish enough on NFTs. And that's the idea that like NFTs are going to be more valuable than fungible tokens. Non-fungible tokens and these types of things are actually more valuable than fungible tokens, because if you think about it, more of the things that matter to you in this world are non-fungible. Things like your car. You can't trade your car for someone else's car, even of the exact same model. It's not fungible. You would not just trade your car for any other car of the same make and model year. Like, it's not that fungible.
Even an apartment space, you might have the exact same layout as the other 500 people in your apartment building, but everyone's space is going to be tailored to them. Every space.
And it's funny that you think about an apartment, something you rent, when the more apt would be like your house and your mortgage.
Condo. Yeah. I was just
Your
trying to
mortgage
go for
is a non-fungible token in the future. When we put these things on the blockchain, your mortgage is non-fungible. You wouldn't just trade your mortgage for any other mortgage.
Different terms, different time, different payment. Yeah.
Different house.
Yeah.
So what I was getting at is that I think a lot of the older ETH people are not yet there with NFTs. They don't understand, like, they're still seeing Ethereum, the technology, and not necessarily all of the implications that are coming with it. Whereas, in my opinion, for mass adoption, you have to go past the technology into the implications, because implications are what cause mass adoption. No one cares about the technology layer. They care about, what the fuck am I going to do with it?
What problem does that technology layer solve for me? That's
right. Exactly. So I'm totally an ETH maxi, and I'm totally a decentralization maxi, but I also think that, most people don't care about values, and most people don't care about tech. They care about the usefulness for me right now. So my opinion is that, like, yes, this tech and this path is the way I want to go. How do I get others to use this path? Not how do I get them to agree with me on decentralization and have the same crypto values as I do, but more like, how do you how do you just make it useful for them? That's really what it comes down to. And that's kind of why we do. Right. Well, that's why we do Touch Grass, because I want other creators and other freelancers to be able to tap into this podcast and be able to say, like, oh, I see how this is useful for me. Yeah, I don't care about Ethereum. I don't care about crypto, but I do care about selling art. I do care about my money not being rugged. And that brings us into kind of like the broader topic of the big explosion that has gone on over this past week or weekend.
Yes. Seen a lot of small banks not doing so hot. Had the bank run starting. It was first issues with Silvergate. People were like, "Oh no, what's going to happen with Silvergate?" Silvergate. Then Silicon Valley Bank goes down, and then today another one. Was it? I forget which one it was. There was another one that's down like 76. The stock's down 76%. People are lined up outside the building to make withdrawals.
Oh my God.
People are running on banks. And the thing is, if you're in the United States and your account has less than $250,000 on it, the FDIC ensures all of your funds will be returned. If you have more than $250,000 on an account, split it into a new account, and then it's covered again. It's like you don't have to pull it all out and run. And if everybody pulls it all out and runs, we're screwed. You run on fractional reserve banking. Every dollar you put into your bank, by design, a dime of it gets held in the vault, and 90 cents gets loaned out or invested into investments so that they can make some money. It's just how it works. So if everybody wants their shit at the same time, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Stick with your FDIC. Everybody just be cool.
Well, right. I mean, all of capitalism is really just a game of musical chairs, right? At any given time, you can just have all the chairs disappear, and you find out, we find out who is swimming with no trunks, but really it's like, nah, everybody was just told sit down and there weren't enough fucking chairs. And everybody who didn't have a chair is out.
Yes, indeed. But the depositors are the protected ones. The shareholders are the ones getting wrecked, as it should be, because they invested in a risk asset or a yield on their risk. You don't
Right.
just get to take the risk, take the yield. If things go bad, oh well, you get bailed out. But apparently in America, just get bailed out. So
Well, and that's been part of the hot take here is that the reason these banks did what they did is because they knew that there was no real risk and that they're too big to fail, quote
there it
unquote, and
is.
that they would probably get bailed out. And that's likely what's going to end up happening. And I've already seen even crypto people. This one's hilarious to me too because um I've seen crypto people saying like that this needs to be happen, that this is different than the last time and that there needs to be bailouts because this is the tech industry, and if we fail the tech industry that it's going to have larger repercussions than just like financial ones. It's going to put us behind. It's going to cause a lot of more layoffs. It's going to cause delays in, you know, Americans' ability to compete. And I think we're already doing that by like shooting ourselves in the foot with regulation. We've already done that by not having regulatory clarity around crypto. We've already shot innovation in the foot because people are afraid to build here. That's why Binance and FTX happen. Like that's why those big things happen outside and exist without us, because regulation has made it to where they don't need us. um and it's just funny in light of all of this being like basically why Bitcoin was created. Like,
There you go. This Bitcoin was created in a response to the 2008 financial crisis. People saw how it was handled, how the government can just print however much fiat they want and give it to people doing risky stuff while taxpayers eat. Everything about this situation seemed so off that Bitcoin was created in a response to answer all of those problems. Here we are again, traditional finance system, coming full circle. We had the second biggest bank failure of all time, like Friday, and then the third biggest bank failure of all time, Monday. That's not a good
it's
start to the week.
insane. No, and I mean, like I
Anyway,
said, to have crypto people advocating for more bank bailouts is kind of like hilarious in a sense. It's very ironic because I mean,
bullish for
even
Bitcoin.
it's definitely. And the funny thing is, you hadn't seen like really bad price movements, in my opinion, when it comes to ETH and Bitcoin. They did not respond to this the way that you know they didn't respond the way, I mean, I was going to say the way you would have expected, but there's two ways you could have expected it. One is that, of course, if the dollar is crashing, Bitcoin and ETH should go up. That's one perspective. And the other perspective would be that like they should have crashed as hard as everything else, but they really didn't. Um,
I think the first step of it was the USDC and the DAI, the stablecoin issue. People wanted to get their stablecoins into dollars, and then all of a sudden now dollars and banks were super risky, so that they wanted to get their stablecoins into dollars into their hands. And over the weekend, these places, if you and I are trying to move some of our USDC into our bank accounts so we can pay for groceries or rent or whatever, over the weekend, these like Coinbase and centralized exchanges paused USDC movement because they can't get any more. They're reliant on the banking system, which is closed over the weekend. So in order to protect their liquidity, they had to lock weekend stuff. And now the USD, the banks are protecting their liquidity, and like it's just a domino thing. But
well, the funny, I didn't,
ultimately, there has to be a way to off ramp for creatives.
mhm.
If there are artists in this space doing their thing, and their job is to be an artist, it's to be a creator, and their income comes from that. You have to have a way to convert that. There has to be an off ramp somewhere. And I think what this weekend showed us is the funnel leads to a bottleneck at banks. Yeah.
Yes. It totally leads to a bottleneck at banks, and that's kind of what crypto's whole deal is solving for anyway. And I think that like this is just another one of those things that it really shows, this is one of those things that tests that bottleneck big time because I could say like my personal lesson, not just in this past weekend, but over crypto in general, since I've been in here, is that centralization is bad. Duh, obviously. But what I'm saying is that, like, in the beginning, I think when you get into crypto, you still trust banks more. So therefore, you trust centralized exchanges more. So, and you're still
Familiar.
like, yeah, like being on chain fully is a scary place to be for the reason of I have to pay bills. So having all your money on chain is very scary. Um, Having all of your money in dollars is scarier if you are financially awake and you understand what dollars are. Then you're like, but like same time, like the rest of the world doesn't understand the risk of holding dollars. So you still have to have them, you know, most of the time. Like even if
And
you're, like
sometimes
I
holding dollars, even if they understand the risk, sometimes it's less risky to hold dollars than their local fiat.
right. So like in the beginning, I guess I could say I got rugged, on some of these centralized exchanges collapsing because like I had too much money closer to the bank. I was thinking, oh, I'm going to keep this USDC here on Voyager. And then every time I need money, I can just move it to the bank instead because it was lower gas fees than keeping it on chain on layer one, especially at that time, and moving it to the bank because at that time there were no easy ways to get like Polygon into Coinbase, for instance. There were no easy ways to do a lot of those things. So Voyager was easier for me. But like in that need to be close to the bank, I ended up getting rugged. And like, and that's even one of those funny things about this bailout thing, because like right now with the bailout thing, if I'm being like a total value driven hard ass, I'm going to say, fuck those bailouts. But if I'm being like honest to my bag, I'm going to say, well, shit, I need those bailouts because otherwise Binance isn't going to give me my fucking Voyager money back.
Everything is connected, and we're just now seeing how connected everything is.
Right.
We're pushing
So,
the issue up the chain, and as soon as it's at the front, there's gonna be nowhere to push it. The whole chain's gonna bust.
but to like show how I felt about it this weekend after the hard lessons I've learned in crypto, like I was very much like, okay, well, I need money on like Tuesday. I need USDC that's on chain on Tuesday. And like now they just closed off these withdrawals. And if I don't do this, what the fuck? If they don't open withdrawals on Monday, what am I going to do? And that's an emergency. That's a huge thing. But then also, I was comfortable. I felt good being on chain and not in a bank. And in that side of my brain, in that more comfortable place, I was over here going, "Oh shit, I'm hedging and I'm figuring out what trades I should be making at that moment to like use this towards like, a little bit of profit." And so, and the funny thing too is right before this whole stable thing happened, I actually had like bought a bunch of ETH when it was kind of low already. So I bought a bunch of ETH and then this whole stable coin thing collapsed. And I was like, wow, I just like reduced my exposure to that whole
Yeah.
collapse. And then, I actually did buy USDC during the collapse because I didn't think for 1 second that anything was actually wrong here. So I bought USDC at a discount.
That was
So
smart.
right. So I made good financial decisions this whole time. And to be honest, like once again, the only things that like got me caught up over the past couple of weeks were literally things that were out of my control, that were in more centralized things, whether it be exchanges or multi-sigs or any other like exposure I had to other people besides myself.
Just
Like I
generally
made
things
good
that are
financial
not.
decisions,
Yep,
but everywhere I was attached to someone else was a little risky.
it's out of your control. You lose that custody of control.
Right. So, in general,
What do you
though,
think then?
like I think about what
How are creators supposed to get their earnings into their landlord's hands or whatever?
this is where
What's an improvement? How can we better this system?
I mean, Okay, so I think that for one, like, I want to say I really do. I never doubted that Coinbase was going to open on Monday. Let me just put that out
Same.
there. Like, I didn't think for 1 second that Coinbase, like, I made some jokes about Steady Lads, and I know there was a lot of stuff out there going around, but I didn't think for 1 second that Coinbase wasn't going to open on Monday. And
They own USDC. If that would have gone down, that would have been bad. That would have been
yeah,
bad.
totally. And I think that even if, and maybe I don't want to put any bad juju on Coinbase, but even if things aren't good, I think that Coinbase probably has enough money to just like deal with it for a while and pretend it's good while everybody shits the bed.
Maybe.
And I think like, I think base is super bullish. I'm super bullish on them creating their own layer 2 and working with the optimism team. So I think that that is all good stuff, and I don't really, to me, that gives me more faith in Coinbase. Like, I still say use Coinbase like a public bathroom, get in and get out. It's still a centralized exchange. It is still just a bridge. But to me, Brian Armstrong has shown crypto values through and through, and even to the creation of Base. Because if he was like just here to be a crypto
Good
banker,
point.
he would not make Base. Base is a competitor to Coinbase, even if it's their product. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a
Yep.
direct, like,
Who validates?
shareholder value driven straight to base kind of like thing. You know what I mean?
Who validates for the base chain?
In the beginning, it will be Coinbase and their own validators, but they are going to decentralize the validators. Obviously, any chain is going to start off with their own validators.
Okay.
And I would imagine that decentralization of the validators would be around probably optimism validators first. I'm sure that's going to be like
Makes sense.
people who are already doing optimism and OP staking and things like that will probably be the first validators to start doing base because it is built on the OP stack. So it would be the same thing with like
Okay.
with Ghost Chain, for instance. I imagine that the first people who are start validating for Aavegotchi first it will be literally Polygon validators. So right now we're on Polygon, it's Polygon. When we have our own supernet, it will still be Polygon, which means that it will just be some subset of Polygon validators. And then from there, you will have, I'm sure specific validators move into validating Ghost Chain.
Gotcha. Yeah, that I follow all that. The reason I asked was that I would presume
Ghost Chain.
Coinbase Coinbase itself would normally be getting all the transaction fees when you're swapping and buying and transferring.
Which
But
are
now
pretty.
Base is going to decentralize some of those transactions. So yeah, it would be a competitor. Coinbase stops running those validation nodes.
Yeah, they technically become their
Interesting.
own competitor. And I don't know exactly what the fee structure will look like. I'm sure they're still going to be making some decent money because I know that 10% of whatever they're making will also be go back to optimism, go back towards OP holders. So that's a really cool mechanism as well. So they're
Yeah.
not just aligning themselves to have their own layer 2, but they're also aligning optimism with like, hey, thanks for helping out Coinbase. I mean, I didn't know this till recently either, but Coinbase is a big has been done a lot of the R&D and been a big proponent and creator of EIP 4844, the proto dank sharding.
I keep hearing about proto dank sharding. I have no idea what this is. Did you like TLDR it? Maybe not.
Basically, I mean, it's just another way of like blob transactions. It'll basically be a bunch of transactions moving in at once. I don't really know the technicals of it, but from what I understand, it's going to be basically that transactions would be blobbed through, and just, part of the ZK thing is like just assuming transactions are true and then like validating or verifying later, or validating immediately, verifying later. Um, I don't know exactly how all this plays in together. I'm not that technically minded, but I know that it's kind of, and matter of fact, proto dank sharding I think is still just like a almost like a temporary relief while we're moving on to other better ZK um, technologies. Because I mean, even like Optimism and Arbitrum are both technologies that are considered to not be the future. They're already like considered like, well, we know there's going to be better options than this, and we're working on those options, but this is what you got now. Similar
Here's a
to,
step in the right direction.
it's the same exact thing with the Polygon POS, and that's why Polygon is working on all their ZK EVM solutions, because the POS was basically like, oh, look, we have the first EVM layer 2 aligned with Ethereum live to the market right now. And that's why Polygon has been so successful, because they didn't delay. They literally said, hey, we're Ethereum's best friend, Polygon. We're just Ethereum in purple. Come hang out with us.
There it is. Yeah. Everyone come hang out. They're sending
And
to everyone's
Optimism.
house an AOL disk. If you do it online for free.
Right. And Optimism and Arbitrum have certainly gone a slower route by going a lot more EVM aligned, using ETH as gas, but also like not really having any liquidity mining or any community growth outside of, like, I guess you could really say outside of really ETH maxis and people who tap into Ethereum culture, because a lot of ETH maxis do not like Polygon. And it's, you know, I don't like it at all. I love Polygon. I do understand why they don't like it, but I don't like the fact that they treat Polygon as if it's the same as Solana or Avalanche or any other ETH killer. In my opinion,
chain.
Polygon is Ethereum aligned, and a lot of people don't believe that. So that could be part of it too, is like, if you don't trust Polygon, then you would say like, yeah, sure, you're Ethereum aligned now, but but I do trust Polygon to remain Ethereum aligned. So I've never looked at them as a negative to the space. I seriously think that if it wasn't for Polygon, that a lot of people wouldn't be doing the things they're doing here. And if they were, they'd be doing it on Solana. And I don't like that idea.
Essentially it's the cost. It's the cost of doing whatever business it is that you're doing. I can't be spending $15 to place a vote every time. You can't cost me $35 to bridge from one chain to another to use my $15 worth of assets.
Right.
It's not feasible. So you have to have those. And that, I think we've touched on this before, but it just circles back to that blockchain dilemma. We have done a little bit more centralization in terms of validation on the Polygon side.
Mm-hmm.
But in return, we get way cheaper transaction fees. Now you can do more things. That's the important bit, because you're not solving any problems if you're not doing.
And yeah, the other thing is that it's really not, so Polygon has like never gone down. It has had some problems with withdrawals and things like that. It has had some bridge problems, but it's never gone down. And it does have congestion fees, but I think when you think about congestion in light of, layer 1, for instance, it's like, oh my God, I just paid 12 cents. Like, okay, well, you didn't pay $12 or $120 as you would on layer 1. So I think 12 cents, you're just upset about 12 cents because it's usually closer to 2 cents. But it's, depending on the transaction, 12 cents isn't that bad. I don't mind paying a 12-cent transaction fee when I'm using Aave, because I'm making a trade that just made me way more than 12 cents. And I'm not worried about the gas fee when I'm making good trades. And I think that's another reason I don't worry about centralization vectors with Polygon, because you can always trade on Polygon and then just bridge your fees where you feel safe having it. Like, if you really don't like it, you can still use Polygon like a public bathroom if that's how you feel about it.
Good point.
You can,
Good point.
you
Reduce
can just
your
do
fees,
your trades,
even if it's for a minute.
Right. Like, if that's how you feel, you can still like do your trades on Polygon and send it back to layer 1 and not touch it, because layer 1, maybe you send it back to a hardware wallet on layer 1 and just leave it there. which also you can still do on Polygon. You can just send it to that hardware wallet on Polygon and then send it back to layer one, paying nothing but Polygon fees, but just have this hard wallet full of ETH or whatever you're stacking on layer one.
Sure.
So I really think that even that is just people just being a little too like maximalist and not thinking about the utility of these things. But going back to like what we were saying, it's like because people don't want to think about those things. People don't want to think about all that stuff. They just want things to be easy to use, and they just want to be able to, I hate to say this word, but they just want to be able to trust that things are going to work when they go to use them. Yeah. That whole trust word in a trustless space.
Indeed. Well, it's different, I think, because you're talking about, it's more of an expectation rather than a trust. Trust implies that there's another person that you have to take in good faith is going to make the right decision. Whereas like with Bitcoin, you can trust that the network's going to be up because you can expect it to be up. It's just up, like, you know.
And I would argue that that's where people get into the weeds about decentralization, because with Bitcoin and Ethereum, you don't have to trust anyone that network is going to be up. Whereas with Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon, Solana, a lot of these other centralized chains, it's a multi-sig, and you have to trust that they're going to keep it going. And essentially the time running is the amount of trust you have in that chain to be up and running the next time you go looking at it. Whereas that's why we rag on Solana, for instance, because they have gone down
when Joe turns the server off.
Right. Or and that's the point. Any blockchain in which you can just go, oh shit, it's not working right, turn it off. Well, that's clearly a centralized exchange. It's not a blockchain. Switch. It's right. Like and I mean, it makes sense. All of these things have to be on training wheels in the beginning. So that's
in the beginning. There it is.
Yes. There have to be safeguards and training wheels.
In the beginning. Got to test stuff.
So, and I mean, that's the whole thing about this decentralization stuff. It's all on a spectrum, it's all
100%.
And
100%.
It's all by whatever you're doing in that given moment. Like, I mean, like, right. Yeah. So
let me circle back then. Let me go another layer back, because we kind of went off into the weeds and we had a picnic like we do.
This show is all just the weeds. We're touching grass, we're touching weeds, we're touching flowers with thorns on them.
That's right. So I would then propose a solution to this banking funnel is people stop accepting exclusively fiat. Maybe what we need to do to fix this isn't like abolish banks or
dude, I would have absolutely no problems here if I was just able to like give my landlord stable coins. And
100%, dude. If
like
I
would
have
have
my grocery store and my landlord any cryptocurrency, I'm in the clear.
Well, that's also why I didn't blame Coinbase for shutting down over the weekend, because they're absolutely correct in protecting themselves from the banks, because the banks only have to deal with you from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So I actually kind of feel for Coinbase that they have this, we're crypto, so we have a 24-hour service, even though like half of our business doesn't. So like, totally, dude. I feel like, yes, protect yourself. If the banks are closing on Friday and they're closing in uncertainty, you better close too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been and
I wouldn't be surprised if they close again this Friday. And this is just new business practices to like,
for real, you got to protect yourself. Who knows what'll happen over the weekend.
So
anyway, I think that would be my solution, is instead of convincing banks and senators to do crazy shit, all we have to do is convince other people to
even more. Not even other people's great, but even better. Like my problems would have been paying credit cards. So what I had to deal with by tomorrow is a credit card, and I should be fine, because luckily, if everything, like, it's still that 1 to 3 business days, but Coinbase usually does it in one day. Like usually if I do a withdrawal, my money's in the bank the next day. It's like, it's never failed. So hopefully they're still on that track record. If the money doesn't hit the bank tomorrow, I've got to think of something quick. But what was the point I was getting to? Oh, credit cards. So Visa is already one of the biggest names in the crypto space. So if Visa would just start accepting stable coins to pay my goddamn bill, that would be one step closer.
Even if they could accept stablecoins to buy Visa prepaid gift cards, then you have
pay
another
your
off
bill.
ramp that you can do physically in the grocery store.
True. It's like I was telling Mike
Visa
Killiam
turns
this
the switch
morning,
on.
like he was saying his bank won't take money from Coinbase. Like he can't send a withdrawal to his bank from Coinbase. So I said, "Oh, just use your debit card to make a withdrawal and then redeposit the cash." The original privacy coin, cash. I was like, you'll lose a $3 transaction fee for using the ATM, but it's better than not being able to move your money at all because your bank's a dick.
I've had to leave banks that they wouldn't. First, they were accepting, like I would transfer money from the bank to Coinbase, and they stopped. And they said they're not accepting any deposits from those institutions either. It's too risky, they said. I did back office bookkeeping for a collective of credit unions, and I watched the dominoes fall in the background. It was too risky to accept legitimate money from a crypto institution, is what they thought. Because it's all criminals and money laundering after all. It's all just a bunch of bad people and scams and
well, even the Visa stuff is pretty funny because Visa, like I said, I think every crypto credit card out there is a Visa card. The debit cards may or may not be Visa, but almost every crypto credit card out there is a Visa. Actually, I'm wrong about that because the Gemini card, for instance, is a MasterCard. But most of them are Visa. Like the Crypto.com is Visa, Coinbase is Visa, BlockFi was Visa. RIP.
Is a debit card, but that's MasterCard.
But the point is that I remember when I first got into crypto, I was able to make a few purchases through like MetaMask using my credit card, using a Visa credit card, and it worked. Which also I don't recommend. You like automatically pay like $100 more than market price, no matter like you were totally getting duped on that. But I was able to do it a few times, and then a few times I tried to do it and it wouldn't let me. And I think at some point within there they had like stopped accepting US credit cards or something to that nature that was like unclear. But yeah, like if Visa was able to accept payments, then so here's where to like tie this all back together and really how it has to do with creators in Web3, whether you're an artist or you're a freelancer or whatever you're doing in Web3, every freelancer knows, like, even if you're not in Web3, this is just a normal freelance lesson. Every freelancer knows that when you're like not on a paycheck and you don't know when your next money is coming, that you have to be good with money and you have to know what expenses are coming at which dates, and you have to know what's in the bank and how far I'm going to get on what's in the bank and all of these types of things. And you're always evaluating that. When you add Web3 into it, you've got this extra factor of, well, is the chain going to be up? Is the bridge going to be up? Is Coinbase doing withdrawals? Like you have these other, events that can take place.
Be stable.
Right. Or just even being able to trust your, like I was using Voyager as my go through for a long time because it was a good solution for me. And that crashed on me and took a bunch of my money with it. And luckily, I might get a lot of that back, but
sounds like 73%. Approximately 73% was what the expectation for Voyager customers.
Oh, really? So I didn't even hear that much. As far as I had heard, it was basically like a 1-to-1 on Binance.
If the Binance thing goes through, that's probably how it'll end up.
Yeah, so then it would be 100%. But either way, point being that I was using Voyager as my service, and then I was also using the BlockFi credit card for a while. So that's kind of separate, but not, because if you're getting your rewards in a cryptocurrency that's going directly into BlockFi and then BlockFi gets rugged, you get none of your rewards. So that was, but the point being that so you have what other bridges? Crypto.com. You've got Juno, which is also a bank, which is also like internet banks are the most at risk at a time like this because they're probably tied into SVB or whatever else. Like they're definitely.
And people can run on those banks from their couch in their underwear. You don't even have to go outside to drive to your bank.
Right.
Money's gone.
So then really, like, you talk about all these different, like, on and off ramps, and right now the only one that we can, like, really even try to trust is Coinbase. Like, all of the other ones are pretty much like,
If you
I have no
qualify for
reason to
Kraken,
not trust Juno, but I still would use it like a public bathroom. I would get in and
and I
out as
do,
quickly as possible.
and I do. But, I mean,
Um,
we've got Kraken. Kraken's been around. Kraken's held
oh,
up.
Kraken, yeah. I've never used it, but, I don't know.
I
The
don't know
bank
if
was
US jurisdiction is allowed with Kraken. I don't know. I also have never used it,
I
but
think
it's
it
been
is,
around
but
and hasn't been
Bankless
mentioned.
HQ, it's one of their sponsors. So, I don't know how to feel about that because they also were sponsored by, I don't know, somebody else that like ended up not being very reputable, but they seem to really stand by Kraken. And I also think that they wouldn't be able to say it because they're both US. So I don't think they'd be able to use Kraken
Good
if it
point.
wasn't. um, but there was something they might have been funded by FTX for a little while or something like that. But also you can't look at people like that either because like Up Only, for instance, was sponsored by FTX by proxy because they acquired like Blockworks. Blockworks was Up Only's original sponsor. FTX acquired Blockworks, so they became the sponsor. So
I see.
they were sponsored by FTX, but they weren't exactly, it was kind of like they were picked up. And it's funny because hearing them tell it, they even talk about how like Sam was supposed to come on their show like even the day of the release and later literally just didn't show up for the interview. And like
Oh,
they didn't find out until everybody in public found out that they were getting rugged also. So yeah. But anyway, off in the weeds again.
yep.
I mean, it's all tough because it is all about legitimacy and reputation. And, it's hard for freelancers or anybody in this space investors, anybody really who's laying their head in this space. It's hard to know where to keep your money. It's hard to know where to keep value. And
Especially lately. Doesn't seem like anywhere's safe, you know?
yeah. And I mean, it's actually the the less of a real life support network you have, the harder it is because making, yeah, like making these plans, like, I'm always planning 2 weeks to a month out. I'm living kind of that tight. And the thing is, most of my friends and stuff like that are like, oh man, like you're living this way. I could never do that. And it's like, you live the same way with a steady paycheck. You're
All
still
I've ever
living
done is
paycheck
just
to paycheck.
denominated differently. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Like you're not doing any better. You just think you have more rope, so you spend more. You're not as frugal because you think, um, yeah, because you have that paycheck coming every 2 weeks. It gets you really loose with your pockets. um, but yeah, it's really tough to know. Like you have to have enough on hand to worry about your expenses, but you also, if you want to, in my opinion, staying safe means being on chain as much as possible and having your money places on chain that you
You gotta
trust.
control it yourself. You have to self-custody, whether it's cash in hand or on chain or whatever, you have to have control over your own money.
And the scariest part, yeah, for me is just when you're not in control of your money, and especially when like these black swan events happen and maybe you like delayed by 1 or 2 days to do something and now you're on the wrong side of the bridge and shit's hitting the fan. And that's when it's the scariest. And that's why I mean, the thing is, like, this all is part of crypto. This is all like why it was created in a sense. Like, people deal with these things in the real world. This is real life as far as like banks and everything. Like, when you get off of work too late because your boss wouldn't let you off, and now you can't cash your check, and now you're not going to be able to pay the electric bill, and they just cut it off at 7 p.m. on a Friday,
Now you're
and
paying late fees, and it's not your fault or in your control.
you're not going to have power till 7 p.m. on Monday now because they're not, like unless you have a credit card and you get somebody to come turn it off at emergency hour, turn it on in emergency hours and all this other stuff. So I think that, These are the reasons crypto was made. These black swan events just prove why we're doing it. Um, and like even like the thing that happened in Canada with the truckers getting their banks turned off, like that's another one of those things of why
That was an
crypto
eye
was
opener
made.
for a lot of people.
Right.
A lot of people who were
So
like not none of this was on their radar. It was just like another group of people pulled into the oh crap, my money can get taken or turned off awareness bubble. That crypto's the answer.
yeah, so I mean, this space is about the creator economy and you know, kind of like how crypto empowers all of us. And to me, like I think the term creator is really opening up as well. Like we've seen it in some of the organizations we're involved in where like creator just, it means so many different things now. And I think that we're all becoming creators and moving into this like digital realm. We all are, we're all these personalities and we all have creativity in us. And I think it really, like, even what you would consider work, like what you do with a lot of Notion pages and like, budget management and things like this, like people take these things for granted. But I think that like, as we move into this more public sphere, like these things are also creative. These things are also important because like a really good Notion page, a really well done spreadsheet. I mean, Dune Analytics, come on, Dune Analytics, like nobody would consider that to be like glamorous, but like, goddamn, do they make it look
The
good, right?
usefulness, yeah, the data, the ability to just get information from data. The value's there for sure.
Right. And what I
Maybe
really
maybe the
love about this
creator
is also like what we do in Web 2 and what we do in the traditional world regarding like data is basically take other people's word for it. And now we actually have access to data in real time and we can see it for ourselves and make our own judgment calls and our own evaluations. Um, yeah. So that's just another little. I think that's why it becomes creative because we now all have access to this thing and it's not gate kept by institutions or certain publications. What were you saying though?
maybe maybe a better term for the creator economy then in our kind of description here is a contributor economy.
Holy
But then
crap. It
but
is.
I started thinking more about that and what isn't a contributor economy.
Well, that's what I was going to say about a creator economy. What is not a creator economy? Not to get like totally off the rails with this and into the deep end where people may not want to go, but I mean, when you talk about seizing the means of production, you really mean seizing the means of creation. And I've said this like in other like things, like when we were talking about like being able to produce films and being able to produce your own music. In a lot of ways, artists never stopped being in control of their production. It's just that it's not really very easy to value in the type of economic systems that we currently have. So creators have been disenfranchised from the financial system based on this like this ambiguity around value. And in reality, if you pull people off the assembly line, everyone is creative. It's simply that over the past 120 years, we've put everybody to work as cogs in a machine. And as people are able to let go of these like paper pushing, machine pushing, button pushing, mindless jobs because technology is going to take over and because realistically, like companies are going to move that direction over time anyway. And we're going to have to figure out what to do with all the unemployed people. And this is another reason that, regardless of like how people feel politically, this is another reason crypto was invented. Whether we know it or not, like we have so many pockets of value and so many contributions and creative people in the world that are not being properly taken into account. And crypto creates these ways of measuring things through non-fungible tokens, through fungible tokens, through reputation, through through all of these different, and even through, like the technologies that'll be unlocked with data sharing through ZK, where you're able to like share specific data with specific organizations and not reveal your whole data to people. Kind of lost my train there, damn it. It got too long and I fell off. I mean, but this is all why these things were created, and it's all part of the long wind of it. And I think that like technology and AI and robotics, that's what I was getting at, is that like whether or not people know this or not, or consciously designed it in this way, UBI and other financial systems that enforce people not having to work as like pretty much literal slaves for no reason. Like most of the things that people do for jobs are not actually valuable to society. They're just keeping you busy. And we're moving to a point where technology is going to move us past busy work, and crypto is going to enable us to like
I like
value
the sound of
people.
that.
It's going to enable people to be valued for their true creativity. I don't think that UBI or better financial systems lead to a lazy humanity. I think it leads to a more empowered and more creative humanity.
I would agree. I think people want to create at their core. Maybe not everybody, but I mean, maybe not everybody wants to create art, but I do believe that everyone has some sort of like, I don't want to say pent up, like internal drive, a need for expression in some way. And those are the things that are going to end up capturing value. Maybe you make incredible pottery. That's a time consuming thing, but you can capture $1,000 in a well made vase. It's like if you're not at a full time job, making $80 a day flipping burgers or something.
Right.
You know what I
And
mean?
well, I mean, also, even with that pottery, for instance, so someone could say, like, under the current structure, well, if you're good at pottery, then you could make money doing pottery instead of going to your job. And that's part of the
Yeah.
right. But that's part, I mean, first of all, that takes a lot to be able to create a startup. It takes a lot of time
Mhm.
into your talent. It takes a lot of like investment in a space and being able to sell your stuff. And it acquires, as we talk about a lot on this show, it requires you to have skills that you may not have, like marketing and social media and all of these other things that go well beyond pottery. And because you're not able to properly translate your pottery skills into dollars, you don't get to eat.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the messed up thing about our current financial system, is the idea that like we've talked about this from a creative standpoint, that if you can't make something creative that also sells, then your creativity doesn't matter. So we have entire forms of art that just don't matter. We have entire pockets of creativity that won't be explored because, oh, can't sell it. We have
Not
entire
profitable. Yeah.
yeah, we have entire markets. Like short film is one of these ones where like creators make short films because short films are easier to make and cheaper to make than a long film. But literally no producers will give you money to make a short film because there's nowhere to sell a short film. So there's no market for a thing, but creators are going to keep making them because they love making them. And this is one of those like catch 22s where people are like, oh, well, don't make things that don't make money. And it's like, but I can't get money if I don't make things that don't make money. Like,
Level to that is that everyone should be paying for things they value. You find a piece of work that you value, even if, let's say, you've got 50 cents or 10 cents something, you find something that you value, show that to the creator.
well,
Gesture of even a dime
that's a
shows
funny
value.
one. No, there's two ways to look at that. The first one is that, for one, if you spend all your time working hard at a job that you hate, and then you turn around and see a creator getting paid for doing something they love, you almost like have this, like, I feel like people have this little bit of like this jealous hate where they're like, oh, I'm not going to support this small person because they just need to go back to work like I am. But then at the same time, they'll pay Disney, they'll pay the movie
Yeah.
theater for an overpriced movie ticket, but not support a
Pay
small time
Amazon.
person.
Dude,
It
that
is
was my mindset. That
weird.
used to be me. It used to be me, like, art was so far out of my realm of, like, why would I ever want art? I have to work so hard for this money. I don't have money for art. When I finally broke that mindset, when I finally got out of that self-restriction, it's like a whole new world opens up, you know? When you start creating or when you start supporting people creating things that you really like and connecting with those creators, it is self-empowering. All of a sudden, you start making connections, thinking about things in different ways. Maybe you end up with a new idea that you can either collab or spin off or make money selling yourself. Like, it opens up an entirely new perspective, at least from my experience.
Oh, I agree. That's what changed for me with Lens Protocol. I had a Lens
Yeah,
account for a while and didn't use
game
it, and
changing.
then like used it, made some Matic, started buying art. It just became
Yeah,
this flywheel of like, holy crap, this works. This is what it's supposed to be about. And I totally agree. I think, but there's that push pull of the reality of having to pay bills and making investment choices and then buying
for
art and
sure.
buying crypto and NFTs. And I think that NFTs in particular are kind of in this ugly place where like people buy NFTs because they love the art, but they also want it to go up. And in a lot of cases, they're more buying NFTs that they don't like on the speculation that this will make money. And I think that
It will
that's
not do that.
why, yeah, I think that's why NFTs do get a bit of a bad rap from the normie world. But I also like the other part of that. I mean, we're in a weird transitional period in all of these things, which is why my opinion is very like flexible because I understand that we're like going through a transition and values that you want for the future and the time we exist in right now are very different. But you have to, in my opinion, you have to be aware of where you want to go and where you are in order to get there. um
Yeah. You have to have a vision. You
so
have to have an end point to be going toward, otherwise you're just wandering.
Right. So I think that like secondary movement on NFTs is super important. So I don't look down on NFT flippers and say, oh, people shouldn't be coming here to speculate on NFTs. I think that secondary movement is super important. And it's one reason that I've always advocated for if you can afford it, buy two. If you can afford it,
Yes.
buy multiples. Because you should, in my opinion, be trying to flip that art, not because you're just trying to make a come up personally, but because you are creating secondary movement for an artist, and movement and churn in a market is what creates popularity and legitimacy, which is something I really want to start talking more about. Because in the past we've talked a lot about I've talked a lot about authority because like in my opinion, and that's maybe a more dystopian way to view it, but in my opinion, TV tells you what to care about. You have this big authority telling you what movie is the blockbuster movie of the season and what cartoon is the number one cartoon on TV and all this other crap. And I think that people really give into that authority, but maybe I've misnamed it in a cynical way. And I think that it's really more that it's legitimacy. But it legitimacy looks different to different people. And in my case, I think that I view a lot of the as a creator, as a musician and a filmmaker, I view a lot of these like structures as gatekeepers. So therefore I view their legitimacy as a legitimacy by brute force. They literally hold the keys. So their legitimacy is that they have the power. Whereas other more people who come from a more like viewer, spectator, witness to these things might view something as like Hollywood and Disney and music labels as um like natural arbiters of the power, and that their legitimacy comes from, well, you're Disney, of course you're going to make the good show. You're Hollywood, of course you're going to know what movie is the best because you made it.
Yep.
And I'm coming from that more, cynical perspective of like, well, you can make any movie you want be the movie of the year. And we actually have seen this backfire in the case of movies where they're like, man, what was this movie? There was this big sci-fi movie, maybe 2017. I can't remember what it was now, but they were like, this is the hottest movie, biggest blockbuster. And the movie just blew up in their face. It did not make its money back, did not go well for them.
Oof.
Um,
I can't recall. That doesn't sound familiar.
yeah, and usually like their legitimacy stands. If they say something's going to be popular, it will fill the theaters and it will make a bunch of money even if people later go, "Man, that movie was terrible." It'll still like make its money because they like pumped it up with their legitimacy. Um so yeah, I'm not gonna get into a whole path of legitimacy on this one because it does have to do with this though, just because of, I mean, that's another reason people trust banks and the dollar over crypto is because they view the dollar as being more legitimate and they view the
Right.
banks as being even when you're in crypto and you're like, oh, banks are for frauds, you're like, well, I got to pay my bills with them, so they're slightly more legitimate. So
And that's other side of the token, your credit card companies and landlords are not going to accept crypto because they view banks and fiat as more legitimate.
Right, exactly. And that's a perfect case in point because as we said before, like Visa is one of the biggest names in the crypto space and still won't accept crypto payments. So there's clearly, you know, they haven't totally crossed all of the compliance bridges there in some fashion to be able to do
I think that's my call to action then. Everybody go out and convince your landlord to accept crypto.
that.
Convince one person that you normally do business with in any way to accept crypto for that business. If I can mow lawns for Bitcoin, I will. You know what I mean?
Man, it's really a great idea. Like if I wonder how we could create more IRL crypto commerce. And I honestly think that in a lot of ways these like banks closing down and these like exchanges screwing around will create more of those opportunities and it will, if even just the last couple of years have hardened me and pushed me further on chain, not further to dollars under my mattress. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
it's not scaring me the direction that they want to scare you, you know? So it's scaring me further and further away. And the more people that end up on this side of the chain, the more legitimate we are, you know? When we're willing to trade with each other instead of them because we know that they're stealing our money and they're doing this fractional reserve token game, that doesn't benefit us anymore, which is, I think I've brought this up before, but like
Yeah.
E-Trade, for instance, I have an E-Trade savings account and they're giving me like 3 or 4% on my dollars right now. And I'm like, so y'all could do it the whole time. You just realized crypto was eating your lunch and decided to up that interest rate in fear that I would remove my dollars.
Yeah.
So funny how they do that, right? And I mean, that'll be the next big rug. I wonder when banks will turn around and start offering like competitive interest rates and people will be like, ooh, I'm going to keep my money in this bank.
I think about the highest you can get as a bank is maybe 4%, maybe 5%. I've seen intro like promotions for 5% for credit unions, but ultimately they have to be making the yield somewhere else greater than 5% to be able to pass on to you 5%.
Correct.
And right now, shit looks bad. You look at 10-year treasury bonds and they're down bad. Like this isn't this isn't the way.
Well, we can wrap this up pretty soon. We've been on for a while. I think we're
Oh yeah.
at our hour mark at least. But yeah, I mean, not to end on a gloomy note, and we can certainly, if you got something to pick it up, I'd do that.
My
But I'm
call
going
to
to say,
action, I think,
like,
is a positive thing. I'd like to end on a positive call to action. Try to convince people, try to convince someone you deal with in
yeah,
your daily life to accept crypto if they're not already. Something simple, even if it's like, hey, I need to borrow a cup of sugar. Can I send you 5 Matic?
it's a good
Whatever.
idea.
It's see if you can.
It's
Try
a
it.
good idea because, as bullish as I am right now on crypto, I think we are definitely still in the bear. I think that this like latest collapse over the week was like it's just more runs of the contagion. We're seeing the contagion continue to run up
Macro
chain.
dragging us. Yep.
Right. And macro isn't fixed yet. So, but I am bullish. I'm going to say I'm long-term bullish crypto for multiple reasons. But like, if you look at crypto between March 20 and the stocks in that time period and where we are now, we are still up. Whereas the rest of the market is down only for a long time. We are still up. What, like, I think ETH is up 50% from where it was, you know, in March 20, right? Like, I think it was
I
like
remember.
$800 ETH at that point.
Sounds close.
And
sounds about right.
yeah, and we've seen $800 ETH since then, and possibility we could see ETH, 3-digit ETH one more time. But either way, I still say that, like, in general, we're like in a consolidation phase. I think that we're in a phase where like we've proven crypto's not going to zero, but we're definitely not back in the bull, and we're definitely not, you know.
All these bank bailouts got me bullish, dude. I gotta say.
No, and this
we
is why
might have hit the
crypto was
bottom
made.
yesterday. You know. I think.
All right.
I think it's bullish. It's just.
I don't know if we hit it yesterday. I still think maybe, but I don't know.
Nobody can say. We'll just have to see.
Cool. Well, I guess we will be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern for From A to Z, an Aavegotchi podcast. That will be live on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. And besides that, I have been working on some music and some Lone Raffle and Sus writing, and there's a lot of things in the fire, a lot of things brewing, lots of good tea in the mix. And you got any announcements to make?
Nothing on my side. No.
Cool.
Nothing new,
well,
at least.
We also, we have GM with GMI in the morning at 2 p.m. UTC. I guess it's the same time. The time changed, but the time didn't change.
Yeah, y'all running off UTC? Did you peg your thing to UTC? Or are you going to?
I think so. I think we're doing it today. We did it an hour later, so then we're doing it UTC. Whereas we have stuck hours to Eastern.
UTC then, right?
No, UTC always stays the same. It's your time that changes in relation to UTC.
Right. So it would be 11 a.m. Eastern.
Yes.
New time versus 10 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah. All right. Well, Rusty's harassing me. I don't know. He wants my attention. So we'll end it here, and I will see you later, friend. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Good talk.
Hell yeah.